Located on 225 acres in Garden City, Long Island, Nassau Community College, a member of the State University of New York system, has close to 20,000 students attend the school each year. The college mascot is Leo the Lion, and these are his stories of the school's absolute best and brightest who have graduated over the past 50 plus years. So let's catch up together as the Alumni Association of Nassau Community College proudly presents Lion Tales on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Welcome to Lion Tales. My name is Dr. Lynnda Nadien, and I am a director on the board of the Alumni Association at Nassau Community College and a proud graduate. I am here to celebrate the successes of our alum, and together we will share stories that will inspire, uplift, and often amuse you. Each week, I will introduce you to alumni of Nassau Community College interested in sharing their experiences while attending the college and the secrets to their success. The Alumni Association is preparing many upcoming events, and you as an alum can be part of the action. Look for many new and exciting events on the Alumni Association social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and our web pages at ncc.edu/alumni. If you, our listening audience, have any positive news you would like to share about alumni happenings, we would love to hear from you, so email us at ncc.edu/alumni. Today's guest is Michelle D'Orazio, class of 1999. Michelle is a proud alum of Nassau Community College. She is currently a kindergarten teacher at Smith Street School in Uniondale. Michelle worked for the Department of Education in New York City as a teacher and is well familiar with literacy learning and early childhood education. She enjoys spending time with her family, loves cooking and yoga. Her goals are to continue taking courses to exceed 75 credits beyond her master's degree. Welcome to Lion Tales, Michelle D'Orazio, class of 1999.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, so thanks for being here. So tell us about your decision way back when to attend Nassau Community College.
Yes, definitely way back when. I mean, 99 is so long ago, it seems. Yeah. But I knew I wanted to stay home. I didn't want to go away to school. And I think I liked the idea of, I knew that there would be small classes at Nassau. I knew I could do my liberal arts, and then most of my credits would go to where I would go after that. So I really liked it. It was affordable. It was the right decision at the time.
Right. And when you were making that decision, did you have anyone that was kind of saying, oh, no, don't go to a community college, go to the 4-year right away?
No, actually, I always said, I want to stay home. And then the last minute, I got accepted to Cortland, and I told my dad, oh, yeah, I think I'm going to go. And he said, no, you're not. You've been saying all along you don't want to go away, and you wanted to go to Nassau. And that's the right decision. Like, he was supportive the whole time.
Right. And what high school did you attend?
I went to Bethpage High School.
Oh, Bethpage High School. Okay. Yeah. So then, it makes sense that it was close. And like they say, like proximity is important because some people just don't really want to go away. And, you don't want to force anybody to.
Totally.
So when you finally were here, what were some of your favorite courses that you were able to complete?
I remember I loved taking an art history course, and I loved also taking the gym classes. Like, I took tennis and racquetball, and I just love that. And I played tennis and racquetball even now. So that was fun for me.
Yeah, we always say, a lot of the guests will say that they loved, we had one of the PE requirements. There's a PE requirement for graduation. So we were in bowling, and we would go to Garden City Bowl, and, bowling is like an art form, and we really learned how to bowl. And those are like the things I didn't know. But yeah, the art history was great. I know that I had that class also, and we had sort of like, it was an art class. I remember bringing clay, like we had like 10 pounds of clay and dragging it from the parking lot all the way to the art room, which, I laugh because I know that like our kids would never do that. We'd have to drive them to bring all the supplies. Do you remember some of your memorable professors that you had?
I was thinking about it. It was so long ago, and I really don't remember the names. Yeah. But like I said, I do remember loving my art history course, and I don't remember the professor, but the name, but I just remember him showing us the slides and of art, and I just like loved that class.
Yeah, it's amazing when, somebody kind of like inspires you to become interested in something that, you never thought that you would be.
Yep.
And
yeah.
I think when, part of being at Nassau, that's kind of the fact that everything is so kind of, there's a variety. And even though it's very specific, like they'll tell you what to take the first semester, what to take the second, but you still get, an art, a PE, then I did you have biology? I had biology here.
I did, and I think I had like an environmental science class, and I remember going kind of like on field trips.
Yeah, I had that. He took us to I think to the preserve in Wantagh.
I think so. Yeah. So like those kind of things, like you said, it kind of opened you up to things that you didn't really think you'd be interested in.
Right. And it's, I think kind of, and you see how like we didn't forget this. It kind of came with us. So now, as a kindergarten teacher, and it's, post-pandemic, it's about 35 months into, this whole scene that we've been dealing with. What have been really the main challenges as an educator?
I think, especially because I have such little ones in kindergarten, some of them, may not have had a lot of social interaction. And I think that it's not so much of a challenge, but like they're learning, how to be social together. And, we play and we go to the playground and we have play centers and just kind of like getting that social aspect.
Yeah, I think they seem to have been, isolated, being home and missing that. What are you seeing as far as when they're coming into the classroom? Was it difficult to kind of like establish the routines this year, or they seem to kind of like understand a little bit more?
I feel like actually, because this is between this year and second year in kindergarten, this year it was a little quicker to get to the routines, whereas last year was a little harder. So this year, definitely a little improvement.
Yeah, and that's interesting because it feels like this fall of 2022 was really like coming back for the first time for real, where it was like legitimately back. Now, when you work for Department of Ed, what were some of the challenges, working as a city teacher? Sometimes
parent involvement was a little bit of a challenge, but the school did promote a lot of trying to get the parents to come in, and they're receptive at times, but sometimes the parent involvement, I think, was a little hard,
Yeah. And were you teaching kindergarten in the city as well?
I started as a kindergarten teacher, and then I did third grade, second grade, and first grade.
Yeah.
So always like in the younger.
Mm-hmm. And if you, looking now when you're kind of like laying the foundation for these young kindergarten students, what do you think their main challenge will be, moving into the higher grades, like, our second and third graders?
They're really doing a good job. A lot. I love how like their favorite thing is making connections, and I feel like as long as they can build on what they know and make those connections and then like bring it to what they're learning, I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah. There was a study that I was just looking at that was released today talking about the learning loss and the statistics, but it doesn't really correlate only because I think there were not enough test takers and they didn't really have they didn't have enough kids even taking the test. And as far as, if it was like 30% or 40%, it would be statistically irrelevant. But when it's like 3% or 4%, it doesn't really tell us anything. I mean, we don't know who even took the test. I would love to see, what some of the scores really were, because they didn't do like a major release. They must be trying to kind of just assess and say, oh, they need more. But
right.
If you can describe, some of your students that you are working with, like what are some of their characteristics as an incoming kindergartner in 2022? What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's interesting because some of my students are coming in and I have some readers, and then I have some that are still kind of learning their letters and their sounds. Some, there's so many different levels where they are. So, yeah, and developmentally, academically, socially. So they're kind of like across the board, all a little different, you know?
Yeah. Now you were mentioning, off air about having English language learners in the classroom. And what are some of their needs? Do you find them to be pretty sophisticated in their native language, or you find that it's kind of like an imbalance? I
think they're sophisticated in their native language. And I think the biggest need for those students is kind of giving them a choice and a visual cue. And then they usually are able to, understand and know what I'm talking about. And, as long as they have like a choice, like, oh, is it this or is it that? They get it, but they sometimes need the cues.
Right. And I know that from working with the ELL, ENL, English as a native language, or English as English language learners, however the state decides to, tag that, they definitely need a lot of visuals and a lot of, hands-on.
Yeah.
What about developing like your centers for students doing some independent work in there? How do you divide that up and what does that look like?
Yeah. So for literacy centers right now, I always have a group where I do guided reading with. And, if they're readers, then we're reading and we're thinking of strategies, pointing to words. I have a lot of the students also do a word work center where they take Play-Doh and they can make the sight words we're learning that week, or make the letters, like you said, that hands-on is really good for them. We also have a listening center. We use iReady reading, and that's great because it kind of goes with where they're at. And then I always have like a word, like an art center. So it'd be like, the fine motor coloring, cutting, like that kind of stuff. And it all goes with whatever skill we're doing for the week.
Yeah. And as far as working with technology, I know that we're trying to provide a balance between students using technology, but then also having to do, learn how to write with a pencil and a pen and handwriting. How is that coming along in the classroom?
Yeah. So like I said, with the centers in literacy and in math, I do give time to do iReady. So that's when they're on the computer and doing work on there. But definitely, I think, especially with the little ones, so important to just teach them how to write the letters on the paper. So we do both, but they love both too. So, it's good. It's a good mix.
How important do you think pre-K serves as far as a student coming in? Because, a lot of people have said, well, what is developmentally appropriate, and are they truly ready to come into a 3-year-old setting or a pre-K setting and then moving into the kindergarten? Do you think that pre-K is necessary, or do you see students that maybe didn't have pre-K and they're still, as far as a developmental milestone, doing well in kindergarten?
I think it's definitely beneficial for them to go to pre-K first, just to establish school routines, just even being, in the school, not at home. Also, just that they are more prepared for the academic portion of it too, because some of the students that didn't attend pre-K, they are still, not know the letters, the sounds, whereas the ones that did kind of have it. So it's definitely beneficial, I think.
Yeah. And then you see that most of the little pre-K students coming into K pretty much had their letters and sounds secured?
I would say half of my class did.
Yeah.
And then some still didn't, even though they were there. But, I still think it's good that they were there for, then the social part, too,
Yeah, so that they get used to it. What happens is kind of like you watch them and you observe and you say, oh, my. One day they just crack the code and they just know the letters and they didn't even realize, it kind of transpires over time.
It does. Yeah, definitely. They all end up, I think, where they're supposed to be. Sometimes takes others a little longer, always, some get there quicker.
You are listening to Lion Tales on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I am your host, Dr. Lynnda Nadien, and our guest today is Michelle D'Orazio, class of 1999. which seems like a long time ago. Now, can you describe some of your postgraduate work and the courses that have inspired you to pursue the rest of these courses above your master's degree, like 75 more credits?
Yeah, so I did take, like you said before, I was first working in the city, so I did take classes above over there that I really can't even remember because that was so long ago. But more recently, I've taken about 6 courses, and I love them because they're online, and you could kind of pace yourself. You get the whole syllabus, and there's forums, and it's great bouncing ideas off of other teachers, and some of the teachers in my school take the classes. So it's just a nice way to just continue, learning all throughout,
Yeah. What are some of the courses that are kind of, helping, now we're looking at, like, are we really looking at like that total, shift in the field as far as what we might need? Do we need more tech or do we need more social emotional?
Yeah, so I've taken like a mix of both actually. So I did take one course with Google Apps for Education, and I created my own web page, which I was shocked that I could do.
Yeah.
I was super nervous to sit down and try to do that. And then, after learning everything and doing it, it was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. I've also taken ones, I think it was called Trauma Informed Educator.
Oh, right.
And that one was really good because kind of just makes you think what's going on in everybody's house, their life, whatever. That one, it was really interesting. I got good ideas from there. And then another one that I love, Practices for a Calmer, More Connected Classroom. So there's just a whole gamut of different topics,
Yeah, and I think it makes you very well-rounded because what's happening, I think, in the field is that we're, and every day is so different. You could be up against, there could be an issue with, let's say, child abuse on one day, and then the next day it could just be completely related to instruction. You might be needing books or wanting books that, you can't get your hands on, and then it could be a much more serious subject. But you feel that some of the social emotional courses that you've taken, do they enhance your ability in the classroom? Do you find that you're more aware of students' needs?
I think so, yeah. And I think another one I took was emotional literacy. And that also was great in kind of compiling a book list for different read alouds and you're saying, just to reach different needs for everybody,
Right. Yeah. It's, I feel like every day, even though we're never sure what will happen, we become, more aware of what is really needed. I mean, I think through the pandemic, we probably learned that without health and safety, you can't really do anything instructionally.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
I think
totally.
That was kind of sort of a hard pill for people to swallow because we were like, wait a minute, if we don't have that, we really can't teach anything because we're not going to have a safe and sort of pristine environment.
Right. Yeah.
You are listening to Lion Tales on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I am your host, Dr. Lynnda Nadien, and our guest today is Michelle D'Orazio, class of 1999. So we were thinking about, I was reading about these phonics programs for the early grades. So can you describe some of the methods that promote reading at the kindergarten level? What are you seeing that kind of works? I mean, we know Foundations is a big one, but is there anything that you think might be even better than that?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Foundations, more for the letters, sounds, and, teaching how to write the letters. There's the skyline, grass line, worm line, and I think that's great. And I really do think that for the reading skills, it's just really important in lower grades and all the grades, really, just to meet with the small groups and, because everybody's at a different level and you're able to differentiate and kind of pull a group and see what strategies, you can continue working with each group, you know?
Yeah. And how do you then infuse literacy into the core subjects? Because I know a lot of teachers will say that they're trying to do reading and math, but it's harder to put social studies and science in. But how might you, fit that together?
Yeah, I feel like there's always like leading into like, we always have a question of the week, and it might be like a science or social studies related one. We did like, how do we use our five senses? So I always have like a read aloud to start the question of the week. And I think you could do that really with any subject.
Yeah. And when students go to their specials or the specials push in, what's the correlation like between like, let's say library, science or music or art?
It's nice because the teachers that do my specials, they do kind of ask like, what are you up to? What are you doing? And we do try to align everything that we're doing. So, in the beginning of the school year, we talk a lot about apples, and at library, we can ask the librarian to pull books on that. Pumpkins we're doing now. So we kind of all like collaborate. So everything is aligned.
Yeah, it's very important because I know that most students, they may not be interested so much in like ELA, math, social studies, science, but when they go to the special, that's like where they really shine and that's like their talent. So we want to keep kind of, giving them a prescription for success that they know that they will do that. What are your students, are they most interested in? I know like play obviously is very important at this level, but what do they feel, like what do you notice out of the group that you have, their main interest?
Yeah, so I really feel like every morning we start, we do our morning routines, and at the end of morning routines, before they do some independent reading, we always have a read aloud, and I feel like they love listening to stories. They love like making connections, to their self when they read a story. So I just think that's so special for them, and I think that they love that. They love just being able to be like, oh, this reminds me of this, or I like to hear them thinking as I'm reading or they're reading about themselves too,
Yeah. And I think, it's hard to choose, really good, culturally responsive texts. I know, we work really hard on that at the building level because, there's so many books that are published every year, but they still may not be, totally appropriate for children. But what are some of your favorite books that you've been using lately? Anything good that you've come across?
I love all the book of the month. I love like You, Me, Empathy. There was like a bunch of yoga ones and calming ones.
Yeah.
And those are good and appropriate for them. And I mean, I love like for the beginning of the year, we do like Feed the Cat. Those are a little more fun. But yeah, so really I love doing any kind of read aloud because you can always usually get some kind of connection to something,
Yeah, I think even in the upper grades too, it's important because even if you have a middle school or a high school class, any of those books like You, Me, and Empathy, you could really read that even in a college setting, just to kind of give like a framework of, the ideals that we want to spread, that, empathy is something that, you want to be able, like you wonder, is it something easy to teach?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I always thought, this is going to be tough for my like K students. And once you kind of explain it, and that book is so great, they kind of really get it. Like, so I really love that book.
Yeah, I think it's really, it's simple enough. It like really tells the story. What would you tell aspiring teachers that are coming into the field now?
I think I would say that you have to trust yourself and know what your students need, obviously following curriculum and then tweaking it to the best of your own students. I think that, teachers need to have good administrators and colleagues to collaborate with. So I would just like mention all of that, I think, to new teachers.
And what about in terms of mentorship, something, how has that, impacted your work?
Yeah, so that was helpful too, because when I came to the district, I was able to have a mentor teacher, and that was really great to be able to talk to her and just bounce ideas back and just like makes you feel comfortable and, in the new setting, so I think that's important too.
Yeah. And I was reading, some of the research talking about, how to make students believe that they're smart enough, smart enough to learn and smart enough to be writers. And then the expectations of, building trust and how to trust adults. And do the kids know that you have their best interests at heart? Like, how do we really model that as teachers too?
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that's important, to just really get to know your students, and because you really are a family at the end of the day. It's you're with them every day. You guys it's your own classroom community.
Right.
So I would definitely tell teachers, get to know your kids, because they want you to know who they are, and you want to build that rapport with them too. So
yeah, and
then that helps.
Yeah. The book about everything I ever learned, I learned in kindergarten. I think a lot of that, becomes really true.
Yep.
And so post-pandemic, what have you learned about yourself as a teacher and really about the needs in our field right now?
Yeah, so I think right after I knew I needed to be more tech savvy, so that was, a big learning experience, figuring out all the technology. So that was definitely something that was hard.
Yeah.
But we all kind of, I think, did a pretty good job.
Absolutely. I think, kind of, it's like almost by default,
Yeah.
And, then you think, wow, I never thought, even what you said before about making the web page. I mean, who knew? And who knew that Google, that little waffle up at the top right-hand corner, held all that information? I mean,
I know.
we just didn't realize it. And now it's just incredible that we have that.
I know. It really is.
You are listening to Lion Tales on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Lynnda Nadien, and our guest today is Michelle D'Orazio, kindergarten teacher and literacy specialist in the Uniondale Union Free School District, class of 1999. I would like to thank our guest, Michelle D'Orazio. How can our listeners contact you?
My email is mdorazio@uniondaleschools.org.
I would like to thank you for being our guest today. My name is Dr. Lynnda Nadien, and I serve as a director on the board of the Nassau Community College Alumni Association, and I am a proud alum. Lion Tales is also available as a podcast on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. More information is online at nassaucommunitycollegeradio.org. Thanks for listening to Lion Tales here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.